Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and we start with news of a wildfire in the North County. The location is in Bonsall, near State Route 76. CAL FIRE says 19 acres have burned along South Mission Road. CAL FIRE also shared this photo on social media showing smoke and some flames in that area. North County Fire Protection District says the forward rate of spread has been stopped. Evacuation orders remain in place for those nearby. Reports of immigration detentions after court hearings are growing. The latest targeting an Afghan refugee who helped U.S. troops in Afghanistan. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne has the video of ICE detaining him after his immigration hearing in San Diego.
The video shows Syed, an Afghan refugee, being detained by ICE agents at the Federal Immigration Court in San Diego last week. Syed is allowing us to use his first name only for his safety. Syed says he escaped Afghanistan after being targeted by the Taliban for being an interpreter to U.S. troops. He has a pending special immigrant visa and an active asylum application. He was detained when he went to his first official hearing.
June 12th was his very first hearing. He was there with his attorney, and the government suddenly moved to dismiss the case, which means, and they moved to dismiss it because they said that the notice to appear had been improvidently issued, which means there was a mistake or something along those lines. The government's lawyer refused to clarify why it was improvident, and then moments later, ICE detained him on site.
Sean Van Diver with the organization Afghan Evac says this case serves as a warning.
No one can define it. There's no appeal. It's being weaponized to put lawful parole-compliant asylum seekers in cells and kicked out of the country.
He says immigration detentions following court hearings are happening to people trying to get lawful status in the U.S.
They've shut down refugees from coming here. They've canceled TPS. They're canceling parole. And now they're trying to dismiss cases for valid asylum seekers. This is a really dark time for our country. And I don't know how anybody anywhere in the world is going to trust the word of the United States if this is how we treat our wartime allies once they get here.
Syed remains in detention. Van Diver says his attorneys plan to challenge the decision. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Saturday's No Kings rallies drew millions of people nationwide and tens of thousands here in San Diego County, all to protest the Trump administration. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers spoke to people at the region's largest protest in downtown San Diego.
An estimated 60,000 people of all ages and backgrounds peacefully joined together in downtown San Diego Saturday. Speaking out against the Trump administration and what organizers say is a takeover of U.S. democracy.
It was just like something that was boiling and boiling, and I just popped off now, and I'm like, no, like I have to have the courage, to stand up for what I believe in and not fear, what's going to happen.
Among the thousands who marched through the streets of downtown San Diego were husband and wife Ray Ruby and Katia Cortez. They said they felt compelled to come out and protest for the first time ever. He's an Army veteran.
I feel like a lot of us that serve with me and people alike feel like our time in service was wasted, and we're just trying to show that to everybody else, show that we're for the people, not for the government, current government at least.
And she's a local school teacher.
There's students who have told me, hey, Ms. Cortez, like this happened to my aunt today, or my uncle, or my mom or dad. So they're losing people like left and right, and they're just like, what do we do?
They grew up in San Diego and Imperial counties and come from immigrant families. They're stressed and upset with the current deportation practices.
Well, people are coming here illegally and this is happening. American citizens are being detained, and even if they end up realizing that, oh, we made an error, they return them back. Like, what are they basing that on? Just how we look? You know, so they're profiling us.
The fear of deportations in their community has become unavoidable in their own lives.
Just seeing everything that's happening literally firsthand in front of you sometimes, out in the streets, seeing ICE vans, all that stuff around, it's really hard to watch, and it leaves you speechless.
Spring Valley resident Karina Avila also marched at the protest with her friends.
I'm here for my immigrant family members who are scared, who have come here. They've been here for more than 30 years, and they're just scared of what's happening right now, the discrimination that they faced back then and facing now. They're scared to come and speak their voice, and I want to go ahead and be that voice for them.
She has family in San Diego and Los Angeles.
That these people that they're saying they're taking the criminals, but they're not. They're taking children, they're taking parents, they're taking the hardworking vendors.
To put Saturday's gathering in downtown San Diego in context, it was far larger than any other protest in Trump's second term and almost double the local turnout for the Women's March in 2017. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Now, while thousands of protesters filled San Diego's waterfront park, a handful of other protests were taking place the same day throughout San Diego County. They happened from Ramona to Carlsbad down to El Cajon. Richard Cannon is with Indivisible North County, San Diego, which plans more local rallies. He says the groundswell of protesters showing up to these events will lead to change.
This level and volume of visibility, especially when it's nonviolent and peaceful like it has been, it is unignorable. You can't ignore it. Politicians are paying attention. News agencies are paying attention. People are paying attention. And that's really the end goal, is for people to be aware that the country realizes this is not acceptable.
The rallies are planned by different groups throughout the county. Some of them are on a weekly basis and others are mobilized based on the needs. Cannon says plans for another nationwide rally are already underway, and he expects the crowds to grow. And KPBS had extensive coverage over the weekend, and right now at kpbs.org you can see our slideshow of images from the event. You'll also find more of our reporting from Saturday, along with more of our coverage of President Trump's second term and the pushback it's generating in our area.
Well, we haven't changed much over the past few days. We've kept the low clouds towards the coast, which means things are a little bit more comfortable here. But as you work your way inland, you're finding extreme heat. Tonight, not much different either. 61 for the low with the low clouds out there. But as we transition through time, some of those inland locations are going to get a little cooler. All the details in the forecast ahead.
The legal fight over who controls the California National Guard is far from over. Tomorrow, a major appeals court will hear arguments from both sides. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals will review the case. Last week, a lower court judge ruled President Trump must return National Guard authority to Governor Gavin Newsom. But the appeals court put a hold on that ruling, setting the stage for tomorrow's hearing. The case deals with the 4,000 National Guard members activated to help protect federal property in Los Angeles. It does not touch on the issue of using active duty Marines. President Trump ordered 700 Marines from the 29 Palms to help with the response. Other major cities might see increased ICE operations. Late last night, President Trump said on social media that he is directing officers to boost their number of daily arrests. Trump also says the focus will be on major urban centers in cities like Chicago and New York that he says are run by Democrats. Internal ICE documents show a majority of immigrants booked into ICE custody do not have a record of violent crime. Less than 10% of those detained have been convicted of serious crimes like murder or rape. Immigration raids are having a chilling effect in communities across Southern California. In Santa Ana, street vendors have noticed a significant drop in business and foot traffic. Michelle Gillet talked with workers and customers.
The sidewalk next to the food trucks on Pine Street in Santa Ana are usually crowded with customers. Since Monday, as the community began hearing about immigration actions, employees say business has been horrible.
Like 50% less people in the streets, so maybe they are not working, they have fear, but I don't know.
Juan Cervantes stopped by for some seafood at Mariscos Alestillo Nayarit and told me it's a lot quieter. He says the crowd used to be 10 deep, and now there's barely a line.
I've been to a few of them that are not out. So, yeah, I've seen that already. There's been a few birria trucks and a few other ceviche trucks that I go to. So, yeah, definitely. They're starting to not come out.
Why is that?
They're afraid. They're afraid. Or people that are come, to get a quick bite are not coming out because they're scared to be out.
Yeah, I ordered tacos gobernador, and they're really good.
This man told me he's been in Santa Ana his whole life, and he's so sad about what he's seeing.
Yeah, a lot of businesses are being impacted because ICE is coming into the communities and dragging people out of their homes, their work.
Louis Gallardo is a food truck regular. The difference in the number of people coming out to eat over the last several days, he says, is dramatic.
There's a lot of people. There was a lot of people here all the time. They told you about that, right? Yeah, they're missing it. They're feeling the effect. I just came from a photo place, and they're not picking up the photographs because they're afraid to come out.
Michelle Gillet reporting there. And tomorrow, the militarized equipment used by San Diego police will get more scrutiny. The San Diego Police Department is required to update the city council on its arsenal and how it is used. The presentation will happen during the 2 p.m. session and will include public comment. Last year's review detailed dozens of items, from drones to an array of high-powered guns. Just over $1 million from the city's general fund was spent on these items in the most recent budget cycle. Voting is underway in the District 1 San Diego County Supervisor special election, and today was the deadline to register for those who want to vote. We want to remind you that we have plenty of coverage of the special election at the KPBS Voter Hub, and it includes interviews with the two candidates and details on voting locations. In-person voting begins later this week. District 1 covers parts of San Diego down to the Mexican border. You can find a link to the Voter Hub on our homepage at kpbs.org. A new California bill could force local governments in Imperial County to start translating their agendas into Spanish. KPBS Imperial Valley reporter Corey Suzuki says the lack of translation has kept many county residents from fully participating in the democratic process.
Last September, dozens of speakers gathered at the Imperial County Board of Supervisors meeting in El Centro. They were there to discuss the county's plan to spend future tax dollars from the lithium industry, one of the major conversations happening in the county. But some of the speakers had something else they wanted to talk about.
There's no Spanish translation of the updated plan. We cannot continue to push aside Spanish-speaking residents, especially when their health and livelihoods are at stake.
Fernanda Vega is with the Imperial Valley Equity and Justice Coalition. She pointed out that the county had only published its spending plan in English, meaning many residents were locked out of the discussion.
A lack of translation is a lack of transparency. How are our communities supposed to fully engage when they cannot access the most basic information?
Translation and interpretation services in local government meetings can vary widely across the state. But the lack of Spanish translation in Imperial County is especially significant. Across the county, 3/4 of residents speak Spanish at home, and around 1/4 of them also don't speak English fluently.
There's no reason we can't have dynamic, multilingual conversation across the state, in the legislature, and in local governments, even if we're not a big city.
Raul Ureña is the former mayor of Calexico, the county's second largest city, where 9 in 10 residents speak Spanish at home, and more than half don't speak English fluently.
Especially in a city where Spanish is not the minority language. It is the majority language, the overwhelming majority language.
Calexico does offer some live interpretation during their city council meetings, but it is one of many local governments statewide that don't translate many key documents. That means a lot of residents have a harder time holding their elected officials accountable. In 2022, a state audit found that previous elected officials in Calexico had been overspending, creating an ongoing financial crisis. One of the causes, the audit said, was that Calexico only publishes its key budget documents in English.
To have a check on government corruption and to have transparency in the finances, the state government recommended that at least the budget be translated so that the population could know where their money was being spent.
Calexico is only one example. The Imperial County Registrar of Voters has been accused of violating federal voting rights law by not translating key election documents. The Board of Supervisors, the most influential body in the county, has also faced criticism for holding English-only meetings.
Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 707 by Senator Durazo, enacting to local government.
Now, though, a new state bill could push the county of Imperial and some cities to do more. State Senator Maria Durazo of Los Angeles is the bill's author.
This bill allows local governments to serve their communities better and increases the public's access to meetings, especially vulnerable communities.
The bill, SB 707, would strengthen parts of the state's open meetings law, including requiring certain counties and larger cities to provide translated versions of their meeting agendas, which list major decisions and policies that elected officials are planning on voting on. Those requirements would apply to the Imperial County Board of Supervisors, and also appear to apply to the cities of Calexico and El Centro. Imperial County officials are pushing back, though, along with several other counties across the state. At the Board of Supervisors meeting last week, the county's assistant CEO, Rebecca Terrazas-Baxter, pointed out that the bill doesn't include any state funding to cover the costs.
It presents substantial costs and operational challenges for the county to implement, especially counties that are small, dealing with budget concerns as well.
Others, though, are more hopeful about the changes the bill might bring, like Vega, the advocate who attended the county lithium hearings. When she spoke up back in September, Vega says she was trying to speak up for everyone who felt shut out, including her own parents, who felt like they couldn't take part because of the lack of translation.
And that's what they've told us. You know, they've told us, like, it's in English. Like, I don't want to be in a space where I don't understand and I'm looking all confused.
Vega thinks the new bill could make a big difference for people like her parents.
By literally just translating a meeting, you're already saying you're invited, you're important, we care about what you have to say.
The California Senate passed the bill earlier this month. It's now in the state assembly. Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
Police in Minnesota say a manhunt that lasted all weekend is over. The man accused of shooting two prominent politicians and their partners was in court today, just hours after his arrest. Ivan Rodriguez has an update on the case and new details about the crimes.
Vance Bolter inflicted unimaginable harm to our community Saturday morning, and he did it while impersonating the very people who are trusted to protect and serve.
Investigators say these haunting surveillance images show murder suspect Vance Belter wearing a mask, police-style badge, and tactical vest as he approached the front door of Democratic State Senator John Hoffman early Saturday morning. Belter is accused of shooting and wounding Hoffman and his wife shortly before he shot and killed State Representative Melissa Hartman and her husband. Authorities captured him after a massive, roughly 43-hour manhunt.
Today, the manhunt is over, but the investigation continues, and more importantly, the process to healing begins.
Belter is now in federal custody. State law enforcement turned him over Monday morning to face additional charges.
My expectation based on prior cases is the federal charges will be litigated first, but the state charges won't necessarily go anywhere.
At the scene. While law enforcement is still investigating a motive, they have confirmed the accused gunman had an apparent hit list with dozens of names, including prominent Democrats and figures with ties to Planned Parenthood or the abortion rights movement.
It is a frightening time we are living in. Political violence is prevalent, and the way we talk to and about each other has raised the temperature to unfathomable levels. We cannot continue on this way.
Ivan Rodriguez, KPBS News.
Southern Mexico is dealing with the effects of a tropical storm, and more rain is expected this week. This video from Acapulco, where Tropical Storm Dalila caused major flooding. Forecasters are now watching a weather system that could pose a significant threat to the same region by Thursday. Dalila was the fourth named storm in the Western Pacific so far this hurricane season. Weather experts say that usually doesn't occur until mid-July.
Well, the good news is we're going to start falling out of the heat. Really, the last of the peak of the heat for those that have been in the desert communities comes today, and then the numbers start to go back down. It's becoming less hot as the deeper marine layer will take hold as we go into the weekend. And by the way, we are going to be much cooler for those desert locations as we head into the weekend, so significant changes. Overnight tonight, 61 in the city as you work your way towards Oceanside, 59. You can see 55 in Ramona, and Borrego Springs coming to 73 degrees. Transitioning through your Tuesday, Yes, there's still a lot of heat out there. We don't fully lose it, but it's not as much. We're starting to weaken the system that has been bringing us so much of the hot, dry air. And as that breaks down a little bit, our numbers do change. 74 the high for the city. As you head towards Mount Laguna, we're going to 79. Borrego Springs still in the 110 plus range with 112 for that forecast high. Ramona coming in at 95. The upcoming days for the coast, we hold on to the 70s, but even that is going to be tapered off a little bit. So you can see as we head through tomorrow, mid to upper 70s, then we're back into the mid 70s pretty solidly as we head through Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So that's that subtle change there for us. Similar setup for the inland communities, close to 90 degrees, but we ease off of things even more as we head into Wednesday and Thursday with temperatures in the mid 80s, then falling pretty cool for your Saturday back into the mid 70s. So that's going to be some big time relief there. As we work our way into the mountainous areas, we go from the upper 70s as we head through tomorrow back into the mid and lower 70s for many of the days this week. So I think it's going to be some pretty decent times for the mountain communities once we get beyond tomorrow. And like I said, easing out of that heat, we do it gradually here for the deserts with 110 by the time we get into Wednesday and then back to 107 for Thursday and Friday. And we'll hold just above 100 as we head into the weekend there. So some big notable changes here ahead. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
President Trump recently said protesters should not be allowed to wear masks, and that comment is raising concerns among health experts, especially after several people were reportedly detained this weekend at No Kings protests around the country for wearing or handing out masks. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco explains why one San Diego physician says masking is still an important option.
In a social media post on June 7th, Donald Trump claimed masks were banned at protests, saying it prevents law enforcement from identifying violent agitators. But some public health professionals say a mask can be a lifeline, not a threat.
Saying somebody doesn't have the right to wear a surgical mask or respirator in order to protect their health or the health of others is really concerning to me as a health professional.
Pediatrician Maya Kumar says that's exactly why people, especially those at higher risk, should have the freedom to protect themselves.
I would just encourage everyone to carefully weigh the risks of going to, a crowded gathering without wearing a mask, particularly if you have not been vaccinated against respiratory viruses or you have underlying health conditions that predispose you to more severe illness.
Studies show immunocompromised people are still more likely to be hospitalized or die from COVID, even if vaccinated. And during the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests, where up to 96% of people wore masks, 11 out of 12 cities saw no spike in COVID cases.
And that will probably become a much bigger deal if people are not able to take simple precautions like wearing a surgical mask or respirator, to protect themselves.
Kumar says many people still face real risks, even outdoors.
For a person with a serious illness like asthma or heart disease, or maybe who's pregnant or who's elderly or has some other kind of, immunocompromise, it only takes one exposure to one sick person to potentially land you in the hospital.
Kumar says decisions about masking should be personal, not political. She warns that banning masks could discourage vulnerable people from safely joining public protests. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Earlier, we had a story on how ICE raids are affecting small businesses. Enforcement is also being felt in the state's construction industry. Joy Benedict tells us more about the labor shortage in Southern California.
It's a sound heard in many neighborhoods as construction is big business in California. But on some job sites, the pool of workers is starting to look a little small. Manuel Florido is working this site in Ontario. Although he's documented, he says many of his co-workers are not. He says they're not showing up to work. Across the street and 2 stories up, this worker says they have a fifth of the people on this job job as they usually do. He admits he's scared of recent raids. But he goes on to say he is more afraid of not being able to support his family.
Any small disruption in the labor markets could be very impactful to construction in California.
Tim Kawahara is the executive director of the UCLA Ziman Center for Real Estate. He says California has the highest percentage of immigrant construction workers in the nation.
In California, 41% of construction workers are immigrants. Undoubtedly, some of those workers are undocumented.
He says Los Angeles is already facing a labor shortage in an industry faced with rebuilding 16,000 structures that burned during the recent fires. So any loss of workers will hurt, especially with costs going up.
We have a shortage of labor, and there could be some supply chain disruptions and cost of building materials going up with tariffs. So it's really a double whammy.
And here at the Pomona Day Labor Center, they say they're seeing something else, wage theft, after some contractors are now refusing to pay, even after the job is finished.
The employer then, after the job is done, instead of paying them like the agreement was made verbally, they don't pay them. And then when the jornalero, the day labor, tries to recuperate their wages, the employer threatens them with calling ICE.
All affecting the delicate balance of building. And although it doesn't appear the immigration issue has stopped progress or even slowed it down yet, experts are fearful for the future of the state's economy if immigration issues continue to saw apart its workforce.
And that was Joy Benedict reporting. Tomorrow, KPBS Midday Edition is hosting a panel to talk about the role of local faith leaders in protecting immigrants and refugees. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Previs Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.